So I want to do a quick example highlighting the ideas of excess supply and excess demand. Of course, market equilibrium is just an unchanging system. I like to think of it as something like a black hole. It's a system where there's no tendency for it to change, meaning when it's out of equilibrium, it wants to go back, and when it's in equilibrium, it doesn't want to leave there. The equilibrium price is just that particular price where the supply and demand curves cross, and the equilibrium quantity is just the quantity where those two curves cross. So market equilibrium occurs when all buyers and sellers are satisfied with their respective quantities, and that's where the quantity supplied equals the quantity demanded, as we'll see right here. So this point is the market equilibrium, and as we can see, that's where quantity demanded equals quantity supplied. That quantity is 12,000 slices a day, and the equilibrium price in this case is $3. One thing I want to point out is that the demand curve is a graphical representation of all the buyers' reservation prices, and the supply curve is the representation of all the sellers' reservation prices. So when I say that everyone's satisfied, I mean that there's someone right here who's only willing to pay $2.99 for a slice of pizza, and he's not going to buy any pizza because at the current price of $3, he doesn't want it. It's just too much for his particular set of benefits. But that doesn't mean that he wouldn't prefer to get pizza cheaper, and it doesn't mean that everyone who's already buying pizza wouldn't prefer to buy it cheaper. It just means that if they're willing to pay $3 or more, which is represented by everyone on this part of the curve, if they're willing to pay that price, they're going to buy pizza, and if they're not willing to pay that price, which is everyone below that price here on the curve, then they're not going to get pizza. So that's really the idea of this demand curve, and thinking of it as people and reservation prices and not so much just lines on a graph. So there's no tendency for price or quantity to change, and I want to kind of show you that through this next example. And so imagine, if you would, that this market for pizza had a price of $4. And put yourself in the shoes of a seller. This is kind of what I'm asking you in your second discussion question, or your first discussion, no, the last discussion question this week, the excess supply or demand. So put yourself in the shoes of a seller in this case. If there's 16,000 slices supplied and only 8,000 demanded, that means that every single day, half of the pizza that's produced is not being sold. It's just getting thrown away. And so if I'm an average pizza seller, maybe I sell 20 pizzas, make 20 pizzas a day, then I'm only going to sell 10 of those pizzas, and I have to throw 10 away at the end of the night. And so a rational seller has one of two choices. They can either cut back production, which would be inefficient because they've already paid for the big oven, the big storefront, and all that stuff to make 20 pizzas, or they could just cut their price. And as you could see, if they cut their price, then what's going to happen is they're going to end up selling more pizza than everyone else. So imagine that some guy cut his price to $3.50, let's say. Well, at that price, if everyone else in town is selling $4 pizza, he's going to sell out. He'll sell every last bit of pizza. And so he's saying, well, I'm going to sell out. And someone else is going to have less pizza to sell that day. And so all of a sudden, the people who are selling less are going to say, well, wait a minute, what's going on? And they're going to see that this other guy cut his price. So now if they cut their price below $3.50, now they're going to steal all of his sales. And on this price war is going to go until they get to equilibrium. And once they're at equilibrium, which is the point right here, now all of the sellers are going to be able to produce and sell every last bit of pizza. No one's throwing anything away at the end of the day because at equilibrium, the quantity supplied equals the quantity demanded. So anytime the price is above equilibrium, you're going to get this thing called excess supply. In this case, we'd have excess supply of 8,000 slices a day. And whenever that happens, sellers have a strong incentive to cut their price. Okay? Now imagine, if you will, that the price went too far, that they were price cutting, and they ended up at $2. Well, now at $2, we'd have excess demand, and it would be, again, 8,000 slices of excess demand because 16,000 are demanded, yet only 8 are going to be brought to market. Now, if we're in this situation, now put yourself in the shoes of a pizza salesman again. Now, at this time, he's going to make 20 pizzas a day, and he's going to sell all of them. And not only is he going to sell all of them, but he's going to sell out before the end of the day. And so if you're a smart businessman and you're selling out all of your product, you're making as much as you can, and you're selling it all out before the end of the day, you should try and raise your price. And if this seller was to raise his price above the $2 mark, say to $2.50, he would still sell all of his pizza, because at that point, the demand would still exceed the supply. And so all of the pizza salesmen in this town could raise their price, and they would still end up selling all of their pizza. And so if they raise their price one day and still sell out, well, they should raise their price the next day and they'll still sell out. And so they'll keep raising their price, and they're going to stop raising their price only when they stop selling out of pizza. And that's going to happen right at equilibrium. And so as you can see, whenever the price is below equilibrium, sellers have a strong incentive to raise their price. And whenever the price is above equilibrium, sellers have a strong incentive to cut their price. And so the only level in this model where the sellers are not going to have any incentive to change their behavior is right where these two things intersect, right at equilibrium. And so we'd have a shortage if the price is below. Sellers will want to bring their price up. We have a surplus if the price is above equilibrium, and sellers will have an incentive to bring their price down. Okay.